it's your girl Razia J, and I'm back with another video. If this is your first time landing on my channel, seeing my face, welcome, welcome, welcome. And if you have been rocking with Ray, thank you so much for the continual support. It means the world to me. Hey guys, on this channel, this is where faith, family, and social work intersect, and I talk about all the things that make me who I am. I dabble a lot of student content for social work students as they're navigating their journey to help them maximize it. And I also talk about my experience being a military spouse, mom of two, and a believer. So if any of those things are things that interest you, do your girl a solid and subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up and share it with your tribe. If you are already subscribed and you've done all those things, hit me down below in the comment section and say hello. I would love to engage and interact with you guys. And if you do all of those things and you really want to get to know me, you can find me on Instagram, where we can communicate on a daily. On this channel, I try my hardest to upload videos on Wednesdays and Fridays. So without further ado, let's jump right into today's video. So I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to take a deep breath. If you saw the title of today's video, you know that we are going to be talking about something that carries some stigma, even though it shouldn't, and that I am still navigating this whole experience myself. But it's been about a year and a half or two at this point, and I always get comments on my videos about school and how I got through those challenging times. And I wanted to come here and share this journey with you. So this is my ADHD story. This is my experience with ADHD as a woman of color. And this is also my processing, my journey of being diagnosed as an adult. So guys, if you want to know all things about ADHD and being diagnosed as an adult and how that really can transform the way you see yourself, the way you view yourself, and things that you have carried your entire life that may have been shameful or overbearing for you, and give you some language and verbiage and words to express what it is that you have been dealing with your whole life, this video is for you. So first and foremost, I want to share my story. Okay, I'm ready. So when I started graduate school, I started seeing that I was dealing with a lot of struggles that I never experienced before. And the reason why I didn't experience a lot of these struggles before in school is because I was able to plan, to prep, and to set my academic journey in a way that really allowed me to cope with some of the behaviors that were presenting themselves, right? So when I was younger, I was deemed gifted and very smart. So I would finish schoolwork very early. I would probably be the first person to finish an assignment in class. I remember as early as second grade getting in trouble for literally finishing my schoolwork early just so that I can talk to people in my class. And I was seen as a distraction, right? Because what took me 5 minutes may have taken another student 20, 30 minutes. And within that 15 minutes, I was disturbing essentially other kids. And I remember getting in trouble as in elementary school and creating a way to manage that. So I didn't want to always be seen as the kid that was getting in trouble, or the kid that was not well behaved, or the kid that had no impulse control. So I created coping skills that at the time I didn't know was coping skills, but I started to alter some of my behaviors so that I wouldn't get in trouble, because I was getting in trouble. I wasn't really getting spanked or anything like that, but I remember even in 5th grade graduating, I was said to be very smart. I got into a gifted school, but again, because I was so smart and exceptional, as they quote it now, I would do things such as finish my work or talk a lot or pick on kids and not have that self-control and regulation that I needed to have as a kid in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And that led to a lot of struggles, not academically as far as my grades, because again, I was smart, but just struggles with making and maintaining friendships, struggles with feeling like I was bullied because I wasn't doing everything that everyone else in the class was doing. Long story short, I made it. I got a few degrees. But when I was going through my graduate program, I started to see some symptoms of behaviors that I thought was just anxiety. I couldn't retain information. I couldn't retain information the same way that I used to. I was struggling in my courses. I really wanted to get A's because I'm a high achiever and a perfectionist, but it wasn't happening for me naturally and instinctively the way that it has in times prior. And I felt like, okay, it's because now I'm a mom, I have kids, and I'm just anxious about all the stuff that's going on in my life. My husband's in the military, my daughter is in school, my son is in pre-K. I have a lot going on, so I'm just a little bit anxious. And as a social work student, you're learning so much about so many disorders that it's easy to just self-diagnose yourself, right? So I diagnosed myself with generalized anxiety disorder, and I reached out to my primary care provider and I said, hey, I think I have anxiety. Is there anything that you can prescribe to help me? And she was like, we can't just prescribe it. We're going to send you to behavioral health. We're going to do some assessments, and then we will come back with the findings, and then we will medicate if needed based on what we find out. And I was fine with that because in my mind, I knew I had to have anxiety. I never in a million years thought I would have received a phone call to say, hey, well, it's not anxiety. We definitely think that you have ADHD. Were you ever diagnosed with ADHD as a child? And I was like, no, I was never diagnosed with ADHD. I called my mom and she was like, you don't have ADHD. Like now they're diagnosing people with everything, right? And that also played on me not really accepting the diagnosis because I was like, do I want to be diagnosed with something that everyone sees as a bad thing? And I remember talking to my behavioral health specialist, the person who did the assessment, and I asked her, like, hey, can you help me understand this? Like, I want to understand. And she clearly broke it down to me that as a kid, I got in trouble. I got in trouble a lot because I was disruptive, but that really wasn't the root cause of me being a disturbance in the classroom. It was that I had ADHD, and many kids with ADHD that are gifted also, they do finish their schoolwork fast, right? They do appear to be very smart and they're the top of their class, but they also don't have the self-control to regulate themselves when they finish their schoolwork, right? So instead of me finishing my schoolwork fast and just sitting there and waiting for the class to communicate again or to have group time again, I would find ways to get attention placed on me, right? Whether that was poking someone, whether that was kicking somebody's chair, whether that was just saying, hey, I need to use the bathroom so the attention could be on me. As a baby, I was not as a baby, but as the baby of my family, I always said these behaviors were because I was the youngest of all my siblings and there's a large age gap. So maybe that's why I act the way I acted, right? I never once thought it was ADHD. Clearly, my parents didn't think it was ADHD. And my doctors never were alarmed, or probably they didn't know about these behaviors in school because I wasn't failing classes. Essentially, I was just talkative and lacked impulse control. So as an adult now, the coping skills I have developed, I would say from 5th grade to the end of high school, I became a planner where I would literally plan every moment of every second of my day in school. And I would practice how I was going to slow myself down so that I can get the work done. During that season of my life, we didn't have anything called fidgets. This was like in the early 2000s. So there was no fidgets. There was no accommodations. The only thing that probably would have happened if I was diagnosed is I would have been medicated. Fortunately for me, I wasn't diagnosed. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't diagnosed. So getting diagnosed as an adult was harder because I had to grapple with what I knew of myself and what the paper was saying. And that was a very hard season of my life. I remember my doctor then saying, hey, with this diagnosis, we're going to try medication to see if you can catch your bearings, since you can't do all of these other steps, these multiple steps that you've created for your life so you can function. And that's when they started telling me, like, your executive function is shot. That's why you create all these steps, so that you can get things done, things that people can do with 2-3 steps. I have 17 steps, and those steps are written out, and I practice them, and I live my life by that standard, right? It's kind of like I tell people I'm type A and borderline OCD, but it was really like I had ADHD and my executive functioning was so shot that I had to figure out a way to just make it. Just make it. I literally struggled for years just trying to make it. And although I created a means to make it, it was not without struggles. It was not without burnout. I realized that the things that I was doing was masking, right? I spent a lot of time preparing and masking behaviors so that I could show up in a certain way that was acceptable to other people. Or when I would have these big emotions and these impulses or these inability to be flexible with things, right? And people would look at me and say, like, yo, you're tripping. And I would be like, you know what? You are right. I am tripping. Instead of acknowledging, like, yo, this took me out of my routine, and it's taking me a little bit longer to catch myself and put it back all together. So long story short, I was diagnosed as an adult, and I started on medication, and I slowly dosed up until I found a dose that worked for me while I was in school. Currently, I am not on any medication. I'm able to function as a mom and as a wife, because I'm able to control a lot of these environments that I am in. But when I was a student, it was just too much information, too much requirements, too much things happening in my personal life, in my academic life, that I really needed the medication to allow my brain to function in the way that it needs to function. So ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects a person's ability to focus, control impulses, and regulate their energy levels. It can lead to difficulties in organizing tasks, staying on track, and managing your time. As a Black woman with ADHD, it is prevalent in our communities to be misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, or live our entire lives with no diagnosis. And it's not just with ADHD. We see this with autism spectrum disorder. We see it with ADHD. We see it with OCD. We see it with not really bipolar disorder, but like depression. As women of color, it is hard for them to diagnose us because they're looking at us as Captain Save-A-Ho, and they think that, oh, you're just a troubled child, or you just came from a poor community, or you just came from a low income community. These behaviors that you're displaying is on trend with your ethnicity and your race and your upbringing, when the reality is, as a woman of color, as a person of color, you very well can be neurodiverse and still have all of those other barriers in place, but that doesn't take away from your behaviors being behaviors and a ways of communication for you. And I think it's really sad to think back to my life over the last 33 years that I literally struggled with things that I didn't need to struggle with because I was not diagnosed. And if my parents even got this diagnosis, what would they have done with it? Would they have prayed it away? Would they have believed it? Would they have just thought, oh, they're trying to ruin their daughter's life? There's a lot of things that comes to play with the stigma of being neurodiverse. But the reality of it is that we're not all neurodiverse. There are people in this world that are neurotypical and they're thriving, but there's also people that are neurodiverse and they're struggling. There are people that are twice exceptional. They may be brilliant, but they also have another disorder that impacts social emotional regulation, or the way they focus, or the way they view the outside world. And oftentimes people see one lens of it, right? For me, because I wasn't diagnosed as a child, I was able to be seen as a smart and gifted girl that was troubled in her behaviors, but still smart and gifted. And if I had that diagnosis, it wouldn't have dimmed the light on my giftedness, but it probably would have caused my educational path to go another way, because they wouldn't support both parts of Razia that makes me who I am. I also want to share this really quickly. As for why Black women might receive diagnoses of ADHD later in life, there are several factors that play. Cultural stigma, systematic barriers, and biases within the healthcare system can contribute to the delayed diagnosis. There might also be a lack of awareness about ADHD symptoms, or a tendency to attribute them to other factors such as stress or external circumstances. It's important to address these disparities and work towards providing equal access to accurate diagnosis and appropriate treatment for everyone. As a woman of color with 2 small kids, it is my hope that we shed light on being neurodiverse and being different, and that it's okay. I know a few videos ago, or not a few videos ago, someone commented a few weeks ago on one of my videos and asked, hey, I hear your struggles. Do you think that you may have had ADHD and you just don't know? And that's really what encouraged me to share my story, because I realized that I shared part of my struggles on this platform, but I never came back and followed up with what happened. And the reality is that my first semester of graduate school in 2021, your girl was diagnosed with ADHD. And it took me a while to become okay with it. But it's also something I'm so proud of now, because I know that it explains so much about me, how I see the world. And now I'm an advocate. Like, I advocate for people, I advocate for children. And it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I can't wait to share this journey more with you guys as I navigate ADHD as an adult, and an adult that is Black, a woman that is Black with ADHD. I am educated. I am a high achiever. I am a perfectionist by nature, but I also have ADHD, and that's a beautiful part of my story. And I can't wait to take you guys on this journey with me. If you are neurodiverse, or you think that you may be struggling with some behaviors or symptoms of ADHD or autism, and you really want someone to just talk with, I am here. I'm an open book. I can share in more details some of the things that I saw as red flags that really allowed me to say, yes, they're right about this diagnosis and I can accept it. I would also say this: medication is your friend if you are in a season that that's what you need. When I was in school, I needed medication to get through. So I was medicated. The last class, my last assignment, my last exam, when I submitted that, I literally took my pills and flushed them down the toilet, because I no longer needed them. And if any opportunity arises in my life where I need medication to thrive, I am a champion for being medicated and taking your medication to be the best version of yourself that you can be. We all are just trying to be the best us that we can be. We have a lot of external stigmas and barriers that judge us, that criticize us, that beats down on us, that we should not be doing the same to ourselves. And as a neurodiverse female, it is important that I love me, all parts of me, that I learn the language to advocate for myself, and that I'm vulnerable enough to share my story. So this was my story of being diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, and I hope that it was beneficial to someone. And if you have any questions, you can drop them down below, or you can email me if you want to be anonymous or discreet. And I cannot wait to share how I thrive as a mom of 2 with ADHD with you. Until next time, bye.